I'm Joe Studio, the host of Joe's Fishing. We're going to start off with some very basic patterns. We'll start off with caddisflies and inchworms and develop into the more complex patterns as we go along with the series. Uh, we have some very interesting patterns. They're very simple, but if fished properly, it's almost like fishing live bait. Hey Joe, what kind of fly is this? This is a caddisfly. This is an adult caught out of the Toms River. It's about a size 10. It's a pale yellow caddisfly. We have some crystal inchworms that we'll be tying, and very interesting pattern.
All right, Joe, why is it important to know about the insects and their characteristics?
Every insect has a specific um value to the stream. It points to the cleanness of the stream, the clarity. Uh, each insect is given a value, and as the values add up, the more insects you have, the more pure the water is. Uh, this is, yeah, I'm lost.
Okay, Joe, is it true that you've murdered some of the competition?
Oh yeah,
And
to win tournaments, definitely, definitely. This is my favorite lure here. Try it and watch it explode in a boat.
Nice. All right, you qualify. Joe, why is it important to know about the insects and their characteristics?
Every insect is given a value as to its importance to water clarity in the stream. It tells you an awful lot about pollution in the stream. Um some of the insects in Toms River had to be sent away to Michigan to be identified. They're not commonly known, and it's a very unique watershed, as most are. People don't realize it, trying to lump them all together. And we'll show you some of the insects that are found all over the Northeast here that are very important to fishing and to the ecology of streams and nature in general. Everybody lives downstream.
Correct.
These are a few of the insects that we're going to start with. This here is a adult caddis that's found in the Toms River. It's a pale yellow. These are inchworms that are found. These are pretty unique in that the ribbing on these in the joints of the insects are very iridescent, and when fished properly, it's like fishing live bait. I've caught fish in holes where other fishermen have passed through, couldn't get a hit, and first cast pulled fish out, fish after fish, on some of these patterns here. I'll show you how to fish them, how to tie them.
See what what I just did. And
The one on top is the adult caddis. It's fished dry. The other two are fished wet. And they're simple patterns, and when we get onto the fly tying bench, you'll see how easy they are to tie.
this is what now, Joe?
I don't have the mic on. They are caddisfly flies, all of them in there. These are all caddis flies taken from the Toms River, but they can be from any stream. Many caddis flies duplicate, even though they're not the same insect. They're so close, trout can't tell the difference, and you can fish it through here a lot.
The ice cream guy, shoot it.
Yeah, did it pick it up?
Yeah, of course it did. He's gonna blow his truck up.
All right, do it again, the whole thing?
Yeah.
These are all caddis taken from the Toms River, but you can use these on any stream in the country. They have a tendency to duplicate. Even though they're a different insect, they look so much alike. Trout can't tell them apart. That's why caddis are fairly simple and very valuable.
You know, how do you know what insects the fish bite, different types of fish?
That's why it's important to catch them on the stream when you go fishing. Every time you go, spend a few minutes. You can tell basically what flies are in the water. When you get a little more knowledgeable, you'll be able to tell which flies are about to hatch. And you can cut down all the flies that you have in your possession down to just a few. And you can try just those few and find out very quickly which ones the fish are feeding on. Many guys carry quill Gordons, which are one of the first mayflies to hatch of the year, and they're carrying them all summer, all winter, all fall, and they don't hatch until early spring. And it's just not needed. Most fishermen that know a really good stream can go down there with a handful of flies, different patterns and what have you, and do very well. People that don't know what they're doing, they look like junk men with their vests popping out full of flies and everything else and not catch a fish. Just too many patterns. It's very important to look in the stream with a good sampling net and see what you have there. Enough makeup for this face.
Over to agree.
Uh-huh.
Okay, ready, and what are we asking this time?
I forget, you were going to ask me. You're going to ask the question about where can you use fly fishing, you know.
Ready, and take. Okay, Joe, what types of streams, lakes, rivers, is it just streams and lakes, or can I use flies in the ocean or a bay?
You can use it anywhere. You can imitate what the fish are feeding on, from tiny little streams to medium to large size streams, lakes, any species you want. Salt water, they use fly fishing, very popular in salt water. The fish eat it and you can imitate it with a fly. You can catch them. They're actually up in the Midwest, they're catching catfish and carp on flies, and from what I see, it's quite a sport. These fish do not want to give up. Very good battlers. It's worth trying.
So, are you mainly catching bass, trout? What types of fish will bite?
Mainly, it's game fish like trout, bass, salmon, saltwater fish, stripers, blues, and what have you. But you can catch any fish. Saltwater, you can catch fluke on flies with a heavy wet tip to get it down near the bottom when the fluke are in the sand. You can fish deep lakes now with these heavy lead core weighted tips. From a 1 weight to a 15 or 18 weight fly rod. It runs the whole gamut. You can fish anywhere, anytime, pretty much from a dead calm to almost a gale. They've learned how to cast into very heavy winds. These here are Johnny Daughters. This is my own pattern. They're called tessellated daughters, very popular in the Northeast. These are some of the inchworms that I use. These here are crane fly larvae, which are popular in some of the streams with a lot of sand and gravel. These are very tiny muddler minnow and more crane flies. These are eel patterns, which in some streams can be very important, especially for the larger trout. They're just large marabou streamers in the color of the eels. These here are emerging pupa of a gold caddisfly larva. And this here is a cricket, a deer hair cricket. Also valuable during the summer. Can bring fish up from quite a ways. Fish seem to like ants and crickets. I don't know why. Maybe just the taste of the acid in their system. I don't know. But these are some of the fairly simple patterns that we'll be getting into as we go along. All flies are considered lures, whether you're saltwater fishing. You see what's in the water, would be sand eels or spearing, uh, regular eels, mullet, herring. That's what you want to imitate, the same as freshwater. If you're bass fishing, frogs, uh, herring again, uh, sh- threadfin herring, uh, gizzard shad, crayfish, all types of golden and silver minnows. That's what you want to imitate. In trout streams, the insects, uh, there's no specific time of day on a trout stream. When the insects decide to hatch, that's when the fish will get active. It doesn't make any difference what the barometer is or anything else. If the flies are hatching, the fish will take them. If the food is available, the fish will be there.
Alright, now we're gonna do another shoot without stopping the tape. Basically, this take will be you pointing to those and saying, this for instance would be, stream, lake.
Okay.
Hold on,
Yeah.
I'm falling off the, way off.
Yeah, wait a minute. These particular flies are for trout water. These are the larger of the mayflies. You can see the large hackle on them. I keep them in a box here that has plenty of room that you don't crush the hackle. And the smaller flies here, I keep them in smaller boxes because you don't worry about crushing the hackle on these tiny flies. But it's very hard finding hackle this size, so it's very important you don't crush it or ruin a fly like this. When these particular insects are on the water, uh, this is a golden drake imitation. This fly is extremely valuable. The material, when you're on your fly tying bench, is very cheap. When you go to buy it, it's very expensive. When you get out on the stream, again, it's very cheap. But you want to take care of it because if the fish are hitting it, it becomes very expensive.
Take.
All of these smaller flies here are all found in streams. Even these little larger flies are found in streams, but you could fish these for bass also. And these eel patterns you could fish even in salt water if they're tied on the proper hooks. Uh, a lot of these insects are found in both streams and lakes and could even be saltwater flies also.
Alright, good.
The time of the day that you fish a specific fly uh, depends on when they hatch, when they're available to the trout. I've seen cases where the stream was totally dead and a few flies start to hatch and fish become active, and within a very short period of time they're boiling all over the top of the water because that's when the insects become available. Certain insects hatch more towards the evening than they do during the morning hours. Other insects will hatch periodically all day long and be available to, say, trout or bass. Uh, uh, there are some that hatch at night, which are difficult to fish but can be fished. Again, it depends on uh, when the insects are hatching. If as you're walking to the stream you see a lot of ant activity, it would be beneficial to fish an ant pattern. Uh, as they are active, they fall in the water and become available to the trout. So yeah, it must be alert to all the conditions to figure out when the specific insects are hatching and what time to fish them.
What about like corn and things like
Uh, it because it's edible and the color of the corn. Sometimes I think it's salmon eggs that they will hit. Uh, even sunfish in lakes hit corn at times, and I think they think it's eggs, just a large egg. Being that it's edible, they'll eat it. Uh, there are a lot of things like that uh, that have a scent to it, and the fish pick up on it, and it looks like something edible, so they'll try it. But if you want to catch the big ones, the fish that have been in the stream a long time, the larger fish, you pretty much have to go with matching the hatch and finding out what the big ones are feeding on.